Chapter 4, For Sale. After Samuelson left, I kept waiting for Papa to say something about plume hunting. It seemed like the easiest way in the world to make money, if we needed money. There were big enough birds in the sky to fill 1,000 boats with feathers, and if the New Yorkers wanted to pay top dollar for them, then I couldn't see why we shouldn't oblige those folks. But Papa never said anything, and in fact, he seemed to get more distracted as the days went by. Finally, I found out why. One day, another man visited our island. This man was wearing a suit with a vest and a pocket watch on a chain. He carried a folder wrapped in twine and wore leather shoes that were made for city streets, not muddy trails. When he stepped from the boat, he nearly fell off the dock, and Papa had to grab his arm quick to keep him from plunging into the lake's dark waters. This man said his name was William H. Gleason, broker and sales agent, and Papa didn't look any too happy to see him. Papa and Gleason spent that whole day going over our island, carefully inspecting the clearing where we lived and the forest that covered the rest of the island. Mr. Gleason seemed impressed, which made sense because everybody knew we had the most beautiful island anywhere around. While they were looking, Mama was distracted and short-tempered, and even Lily figured out something serious was going on and avoided Mama. Finally, Gleason left, and Papa stood on the dock for a long time watching the water and looking at the sky. That night at dinner, Papa made a simple announcement that dropped on us like a cold stone. We're putting the island up for sale. Before anybody could say another word, Lily jumped up and nearly tipped her plate over. Papa, no, she said. Why would you sell the island? Well, Lily, Papa started, but Lily just talked right over him. I don't want to sell the island. Why would you sell the island? I don't want to live nowhere else. Lily! Mama suddenly yelled and Lily stopped talking. You sit down, young lady, and don't raise your voice to your papa like that. This was a hard enough decision to make, but we've made it. All the air seemed to go out of Lily, and she collapsed back into her chair. Her eyes were already filling with tears. Why? She started to whine. But Papa... Now, Lily, Papa said sadly, I know it's hard to understand, but this island is getting too expensive for us to keep. There's a thing called property taxes, and as long as more people keep moving in, then property taxes keep going up, and, well, we just don't need this much land. Mr. Gleason, who was here today, he said this island will be worth quite a lot because it's on fresh water. So once we sell it, we'll be able to get a smaller, more manageable plot somewhere else. Lily was crying now, and Papa looked miserable. She opened her mouth to say something else, but Mama cut her off. No more complaining, Lily. There was something steely and hard in Mama's voice, and for the first time in my life, I saw Lily struck speechless. She snapped her mouth shut with an audible pop, and stared at Mama for a long minute. Then her face finally crumpled, and she ran away from the table. Papa, I said, in the silence that followed. They turned to me, and I finally asked a question that had been on my mind since John Samuelson visited. If we need money, how come we don't do what John Samuelson said? You heard what he said about the rookeries, right? Why don't we go plume hunting? Papa sighed and shook his head. He thought for a long minute before he answered. I wondered how long it would take you to get around to that. I saw that Mr. Samuelson's story gripped your imagination. But Charlie, here's the thing about easy money. There's always strings attached. Killing birds is no way to make an honest living. It's a rough business full of rough men who wouldn't think anything of putting a bullet in you just for some money. And make no mistake about it, the greed of men knows no bounds. No matter how many birds there are now, there aren't enough to satisfy the thirst for money that afflicts some men. I don't want my family to get caught between men like John Samuelson and their money. Killing things we don't need to kill to live? It's not the way I want to raise a family. But, no, Charlie, Papa said. We'll find a way to provide for ourselves and still hold our heads up high. That's the Pierce way. I knew from his tone of voice that there was no arguing with Papa, but I sure didn't agree with him. His reasoning sounded as thin as a blade of sawgrass, and I couldn't help my feeling as I prepared for bed that evening. I was mad at Papa for turning his back on a way to save the island. I was mad at Lily for running away from school and wasting all the money that we could have saved our island, and I was even a little mad at Mr. Gleason for his shiny leather shoes and shiny watch. and I didn't agree with Papa about the nature of plume hunters. I'd heard plenty of times that if a person wanted to make his way in the world, he had to go out and make an opportunity. It was the American way. So what was hunting plumes but the American way? Lying there in bed, stewing in anger, I decided to make some opportunities for myself. If Papa wasn't going to find John Samuelson's secret snowy egret rookery, then I would.